welcome back, guys. Today, I would like us to talk about how one could probably go about building an SMTP server. So, basically, giving you the option to have your own server to actually send and also receive emails. And what I will try to do today is, of course, to walk you through like a working example, and this is also going to be an excerpt of a project which I'm working on the side. So I would try to, of course, provide a working prototype and also in the process explaining all the underlying principles that surrounds building an SMTP server. And of course, we'll be doing this today in Rust. So SMTP is the standard protocol for sending emails across the internet, and it operates basically on port 25, or also maybe of course 587 with TLS, and it follows a specific command response format. And that's more or less there are like the like under the hood there are like, I would say in summary, five basic steps that normally are followed before communication, of course, is established and then data is exchanged. So there is connection from client to server. Then there is greeting, more or less like a handshake, more or less between the server and the client. And then the client initiates an SMTP conversation. The email transaction occurs, and then connection is closed. And that's more or less how this works. So let's jump right in. I've taken the liberty to come to Cargo Tumble and add a couple of dependencies I think I would be needing. So again, I'm going to be building this out as an Axis web server. And then, of course, I'm going to spun up a new task that's going to handle my incoming emails. And so I'll try as much as I can to keep it quite simple. So now I'm going to change my main function to, of course, allow me work with Axis. So here I'm going to return a result. So stdio result, and I'm just going to not return anything in here for now. I'm just going to keep it quite simple. And then in here, again, I'm just going to return nothing basically. And of course, to use this, I'll annotate this. I will annotate this with Tokyo Man, so I can simply say Tokyo Man, and of course this has now to be async. And now I have more or less not quite set up, but let's just go ahead and set everything up. So, but in here now I can set up my HTTP server and new. I'm gonna add a factory, add a closure, and in here I can now say app new, and just gonna keep it simple for now. And down here again, I'm just gonna do bind, and then I provide my address. So I probably increase the font to make it a lot readable. And of course, so I would of course bind this to my local host. So I still bind 127.0.0.1, and of course I provide the ports. Ports would be at 8080, and I'll handle the error, and I can run, and then I await this. And of course I have to get rid of this now because we don't need that anymore. So now we would of course have our minimal library running right now. So I'll just go to Axis and copy a simple example endpoint so I don't waste time typing everything out. So I have here hello, and of course this hello needs to come from here, and responder needs to come from here, and finally HTTP response needs to come from here as well. And then now I can simply say I can now add this as a service. I say hello. And so what it simply means now is if we say cargo run, now we should be able to, of course, have this here. So I say curl, Is the terminal so slow? Okay, curl, and I go to 127.0.0.1, and I go to 8080, and wait a few seconds for this to complete. So now I can make my request. Um, Actually, I can just do localhost and 8080, and that should be fine. So we have this working, so that's also what I wanted. So I can now collapse this and probably focus now what I want to do. So I can probably come up here and create a folder, and I call this handler, something like this. And then in here, I would now have one called email.rs. I'm just going to keep it as simple as possible. And I have now a mod rs. And in my main file, I'll try to come on. What is going on? And here I can say use handlers. Oh, sorry, I save, come on, mod handlers. And then in here, I can now say pub mod email. And now in here, I would now actually start writing, actually start setting up my email. So in here, I'm going to create a function, and I'm going to call this, it's going to be async, of course. So async fn, and I can simply call it run STMP server. It's not going to take anything, and it's going to return a result. And the result is going to be, of course, either of unit type or, of course, a standard error. So I'm going to box this. So STT, we go to error, and we get error. And in here, I'm just going to create a listener. So I can say let's listener. This listener is going to come from TCP listener. And I go to bind. So I'm going to bind it again to 127.0.0.1, and the port is going to be 2525. And this is going to return a result, of course, sorry, a promise. So I await it. What is this? A bind. Okay. Await, of course. And I get back a result. I get back, like, of course, an enum, which is either a TCP listener or an error. And so what I can now simply do is to run a loop infinitely to now handle this. So I need to accept this listener, and I need to create an argument from this. So I'm just going to call this stream. So this is what would be what would be processed on the TCP stream, and it's going to come from listener.accept. Did I type that correctly? Listener. So I say listener.accept and await this. And now in here, this should be from Tokyo. And okay, so that's more like it. And now that I have my stream, which is of course coming from my TCP, the TCP listener, I can now go ahead and process this. So I'm going to create a new spawn. So I can say Tokyo to spawn up a new task, spawn, and it's going to be a future. So async, I'll do an async move, and then here I'll have to handle my stream. So I need to create a function called handle SMTP. So I'm going to come up here and create a new function. It doesn't need to be public. So I say async fn handle SMTP. So it's going to take a stream, which is going to be of type Tokyo net TCP stream. And it's going to again return based on the signature of this one down here. So I'm probably just gonna copy this and bring it up here because it needs to match this. Yeah, okay, but what I can now actually do is to complete this. So I simply call this function as handle SMTP and I pass the stream and I wait it because again it's going to be a future. And what I can simply do is of course to handle this. So I can say I use the if let syntax. I say if let error. So I can call this error of course, and this is going to come from this. So if this is the case, I can simply maybe print this, and I can say some like error handling TCP stream, and I can say error, and I just for now I'm just gonna dump this in here like this, and this will be the error, and of course I close this up. So now this should be, of course this should be closed up as well. So now this should match what we expect to return, of course. So now all we have to do is to go back to this handle SMTP function and then implement the main logic. So we can now come back in here and start, of course, processing the stream. So I'm probably going to come up here and create a struct that's going to hold some of the variables that, of course, be needing to handle my SMTP. So I'm going to call this, maybe it doesn't even need to be public, so I can call this mail content. And it's going to have a few things. It's going to have a buffer. And if that's the case, no, let me leave it like this for now. Let's see. So it's going to have a buffer, which is going to be a slice of U8. Oh, sorry. So it has to be a slice of U8. And I also need to provide the size. I say 1024. So let's go. So I need one that's called state reset. It's going to be a bool. I need a sender. So this is going to be a string. And what else do I need? Okay, I also need a receiver. I actually don't need to do this, but again, set it up however you feel you need to. So I have another one. So call this email. Oh, this is already about email, so I'm just gonna probably call this data. Again, it's gonna be let me see, a vector of U8. I think that's already okay. And what I can do is to maybe implement default. So I implement debug and default. Okay. And why do I have an error? Default is not satisfied. The following. Okay, I can also do it like this. Let me see. I can do it like this. Import default for mail content. And now I can, of course, implement my default. So mail content. And then in here, buffer again would become, I'll first say 0 and then 24. And of course, I can go ahead state reset. I'm going to set it to false, of course. Sender will be string.new, and receiver again also string.new, no. And finally, data will simply be vec.new. And why do we still have a problem here? Oh, this 24. Why do I keep writing 10 for 10? Okay, now we have our default implemented. So now what I can actually do is to come in here and say, let's make it immutable because I'm going to be updating them. So I say let mute mail content would now be mail content the default. Okay. And now I can go ahead to start parsing the stream. So the first thing I would like to do would be I would like to send greetings to the client. And to do this is just quite straightforward. All I need to do is to write a message to the client. So I'm going to use the write all function. And of course, the content should be I'm going to be passing a byte. Of course, it's going to, of course, translate to what I need it to be in the end. But in here is of course important the status code that is being returned, and maybe to give a little bit, shed a little bit more light to make it, of course, make you understand what we're doing. So I've added some info here in the README. So these are some of um, the data that is always exchanged to, of course, let the server know what I'm trying to do. So there is hello, which of course is what I'm trying to implement now, which is mostly, of course, used to send greetings. Then you might have already have noted this mail from is used to identify, of course, the address you have received from, and then data, which happens to be the content. Quit terminates the process. There's also an auth that's extend, of course, when you want to initiate, of course, authentication, and then passing some additional information, the data can actually authenticate that client, and much others. So there's of course help. We're not going to implement all of them, but we'll implement the most important ones that would be needing to set up our server. And what I'm probably also probably going to do is to get a list of some of the important status codes, and also put them here in the README so you can have them handy basically. So, but what we try to do here is to because this communication between the server and the client has to be using these codes. We have to send this. We want to make send a greeting. The client has to send this when he's trying to send like the address. He has to send this when he tries to send the recipient. He has to send this when he wants to send data and stuff like that. So that's also how we would handle the communication here. So here I'm simply gonna say this is our simple Rust SMTP um, server, and I'm just gonna close it up, and also maybe even add a new line in the end. And so what I can now do actually is to, of course, this is gonna be a future, so I will await this, and now I have to handle the error again using the if let syntax. So if let error. So if there is an error, what we would like to do, of course, would be to return. So return this error. Okay, I'll wrap this in a box. And I say box.new, and I pass the error. And in the end, what I can probably do is to, for now, I'm just probably gonna do okay. Sorry, not here. So we don't keep getting this error because it's kind of annoying, to be honest. Okay, so when we first thing, of course, we try to do would be to greet, and when this doesn't go our way, I'm just gonna copy this guy. So we have to send some error message to the user, and what we can actually say is maybe something like error sending greetings, and then we'll provide the error basically. Okay, so but after the greetings, what we have to do now is to create a loop. This error is going to come back again because now this becomes redundant, but anyways. So we now have a loop. We have to now pass the stream complete, and now we have to pass the stream completely. So again, I'm going to be throwing in comments so you understand what we're doing. So I would like now to read the incoming data and see what is being actually exchanged. So now I would like to read. So I'll use the read function, and then here I like to pass my buffer. And again, this is gonna come from just gonna come from my mail content. That's buffer. And again, this is a future, so I have to await this. Again, I handle the error. Would probably um no, it's not gonna be an error. I'm gonna be reading out the content basically. So I'm gonna I'll check the size of the bytes that I'm reading. So I'm just gonna call this n, and I'm gonna probably use the match. So I can do something like okay when I have a data. Um, I'll say if n if data if the size of this data is greater than 0, if it is not empty, so of course I will return this data, and otherwise for any other data I'm just gonna break. Okay, and we seem to have some error. Let me see. So of course I have to close this up, and I might as well just call this n because I already have n up there, and it's also more intuitive, I guess. So I say n, and this mostly one of the scenarios where this would happen would be probably, let's say, when the connection is closed. So I think I have to make this pass this immutable, of course. And why do we still get an error here? Mismatch. And now, let's proceed. I would like to, the first thing I would like to do would be to read the entire buffer and to see what we have. So I can say let's request. I call this request, and this is gonna come from. I'm gonna use this handy string function called from UTF-8 lossy, and I pass the buffer. So mail content dot buffer, and of course it's gonna go from. I'll read everything, of course, because I would not want to skip a byte I'm supposed to read. And I read this to string, and we do have an error. And what is it? Mismatch. Expected U16, found U8. Of course, I used the wrong function, so U8, and now this should be fine. Okay, let's proceed. And now I would like to turn this to uppercase, so I can say request upper, and I can say request dot to uppercase to normalize the string. And probably what I would just do here is I print some message. I say received command, and because I would like to see what I'm actually receiving, so I can say request upper, and I'll probably just trim it in case there are trailing floats, trailing spaces rather. So I would just trim them off. What is this? Okay, and now I have to now loop through the strings and then pass the different scenarios that I might be getting. So I'll use a match, and I'll go to the request upper, and of course I trim it. And now this is where I look through all those possible scenarios we could get, the ones we already talked about here, these ones. So this, if that's data, for example, starts with any of these, then I know what I need to do. Okay, so the first thing I would do here would be to check if this command is a hello. So command, and this command is gonna be command that starts with, I'm sorry, it should be, so this would be the case, and I say if command that starts with, and it has to be hello. Um, Let me see. I think I made a mistake. So if this starts with this, but what I can also do is maybe handle these two scenarios as one. So I'm just gonna maybe copy this part and I say or, and now I handle also EHLO. So whichever one that I receive, I'm just gonna handle them both as hello, and okay, should be like this. And so if that ever happens, what I would like to do, of course, simply to write, um, so if this is the case, I will now decide what I would like to write to the user, to the client. So I can say stream dot write all. And in here, I would, of course, has to be a byte. But now I would, if I get a hello, I would also like to reply with a 250 hello, and again, and also throw in a new line in the end. And of course, it's a future, so I await it and I handle this, and then I call check use my if let syntax check if there's an error. So if there's an error, again, I'm going to do something like this, like this. Just gonna copy this, and I break, of course. And but in here, I would say maybe something like error responding to hello, something like this. And what I can already do is to maybe handle every other case. So for every other case, I'm also doing this because of that error. So for every other case, I'm also going to copy something similar. So I'm just going to copy this whole thing and put them in here. And maybe now I write a 500, and I can say something like unrecognized command. And then here I can say error responding to unrecognized command, something like this. And that way we can, of course, handle every other scenario, and this error we're getting here can also go away. And at the end in here, I'm just going to throw in an OK as well. Um, I think I put it in the wrong place, so it should be down here. Okay, and that should take care of our guy for us. And now what I can actually already do is to come back to our main function, because I would like to, of course, use this in here now. So in here, what I can also do is Tokyo spawn. Again, it's going to be async. And then in here, I can simply call our, I can say handlers email, and I say run SMTP server, and I await this because it's returns the future. And then of course I handle the error, and I say if let's error. If we have an error, what I can also simply do is to a print line the error, as simple as this, and I can say error running STMP server error, and I dump that in there, and I close that up. And of course, I close this one up as well. Okay, and now this should of course now be able to run our server. We should of course in turn be able to run this guy first. So let's open this up and restart our server to see if everything is still working as expected. and give that a few seconds. And our server is online again. Maybe what I can do is to come in here and maybe throw in some message. So I can simply just use print line for now, and I can say running STMP server at, and I just copy this guy and close that up and restart the server, and now we should say that it's running the SMTP server at this point. But of course, we're not expecting a regular endpoint. It's not like a regular API that we could test from as a regular endpoint. We could use like a telnet, for example. So if you have PuTTY, that's also what I use extensively when I'm developing. But what I can also do here to make this a lot easier is to write a simple Python script, and that's going to help us do the testing basically. So to test our progress so far, just prepared a simple Python script that one can use to send an email. And I'm just going to bring it over for you to see there's not so much in here basically. So as you can see, so I've provided, of course, imported this SMTP lib in Python. And yeah, I try to connect to this server. So this is where I'm running my server locally. Then I say hello to do a handshake, and then I prepare my email. So that's the sender, the recipient, the message itself, and then I send the email. Pretty straightforward. So now if we, of course, do some like Python main.py, it's going to error out because we are not for now handling all the messages. And that's also why you see at the bottom here we get this sender refused, SMTP sender refused. The error is 500, and this is the error we are sending unrecognized command. But the interesting thing, of course, is if you come down here, because I am always up here, logging the received command. So you also see what we've been receiving so far. So we received the hello email and the reset, but of course we are not handling this any for now. So that was also why this errored out. So that's where we are for now. And let's try to see if we can implement all the other commands so we'll be able to send like a complete email to our server. Okay, so now we've seen that we are able to send email to our server, and so far our server, of course, understands the email, but not yet handling all the possible commands from that email. So what we should do now is to be able to allow our server or give it the capabilities to handle all of those options. So I'll probably add some comments here to make it a lot more readable. So I can say handle hello and hello command. And here I can maybe simply say handle unrecognized command. And now, so the next thing, of course, I would like us to handle, I would try to make this a little bit snappy, is I'll say handle mail from command. And all of these are actually going to be quite similar to the other one. So to save us time, I've implemented this. I'm just going to show that to you. And this is what it looks like. So I'm just gonna, again, just like we did up here, like I showed you, we check again, remember this up here. That's really the one thing you need to always know. To get a specific data out of an email, you need to know, use this as more or less a table to actually know where to get that data from. And of course, not just to know what to get out of it, you need to also know where you could be coming from to get to that and where you could be going to afterwards. Okay, so again, we try to extract, of course, the mail from. If that matches, then we simply handle um, this by actually just extracting that string. And I've also added a handy function called pass mail. That's also what you see in line 55. So that's also what I'm going to put down here. Again, it's nothing fancy. It's also just going to help us to extract the mail from the way, the format that it would be written in the email that we would be getting. Okay, and now what I can simply do here is to update this to mail contents and sender, of course, and this will be mail contents dot state reset, and then we update those, and that's how we handle our from command. So if, for example, we send this now, you will see we should be able to correctly handle this. But I wouldn't want us to waste time, so let's proceed. And what I can probably handle here would be handle resets command. Again, is also going to be quite similar to what we've done so far. So I'm just going to provide you with a code snippet as well. It's again going to be like what we did before, say mail content. That's state reset. I set this to true. And then once we are able to get this, we simply update our struct and then we send back an OK to the client. That's basically what we're doing. So the email will be sent in chunks and we'll process those chunks as they come in. So when we get to the line that says this, we handle this and of course tell the server again, okay, if everything goes well, of course. Okay, so we have processed the mail from. We have the next thing I would like us to, of course, look at would be how to handle the recipient. So I can say handle RCPT command. So this is basically again like you can already have imagined. We simply reach the recipient from the bytes now we receive, and now I simply just um, update it here in our struct. That's really it. And again, we have our handy function. Okay, so the interesting part, of course, in my opinion, would be to handle data. This helps us to actually read the data that we are getting from that is coming in the email. So this is more or less for me the most important part of the email. Every other thing, of course, is secondary. So again, I'm going to collapse this so we have a larger real estate to work with. Again, so I'm gonna say mail content state reset. I'm just gonna update all of this, and this again is gonna be mail content data, and again here mail content buffer, mail content data. Sorry, and also here mail content buffer and mail content data. Okay, so this is all just doing some string manipulation basically. And again, same thing would be here. So mail content, what was it? Mail content data. And also, so I had this implemented, of course, but that's really not important here. So I'm just going to get rid of it. Again, I can just quickly walk you through what is happening here. So this is one way that I try to actually tell when I'm still in the process of sending or receiving and more or less receiving an email or not. So that's why I have this handy boolean here. But anyways, when that's not the case, I go ahead to process the stream that I get. Okay, so in reading the body, again, I read the body because it's going to be a slice of bytes. So I read this in a loop and I update this accordingly. So that's also why I have this buffer here. And yeah, all of this here are all just string manipulation to handle scenarios for like new lines and stuff like that that you would probably have in a typical email. And in the end, of course, I need the body. And for now, I'm not really doing much with it. I simply log this for now and just for you to see the content. And that's all. And then in the end, I send it to 50. And when that fails, I simply print this error. And that's basically it. The last thing I probably would want to show you that might be interesting for you would be how to handle the quit command. It's exactly what it sounds like. So we quit and terminate the process. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. It should start with a quit, and then I simply send it 211, and that's it. So for now, like I said, we don't need to implement all of this in this short demo to simply show you how to pass or receive an email. Of course, in a typical email server, we would have to, most importantly, of course, they handle auth. So we should stay, expect that we get some form of authentication from the client trying to send email to us. And when that fails, of course, we should be able to quit the whole process. But I'm going to leave that out here. It's probably going to take longer, and I'm just going to leave that out. So, but if people, of course, would are interested in on how to implement this, I would be much happy to do that for you. But anyways, this is most of or this contains most of what I would want to show you because I think these are the most important commands that you would need to handle to be able to send email comfortably. And for now, we are simply handling around just 6 commands. And again, like I said, this should be enough to test what we have so far. Okay, so what I'm simply going to do is to, of course, restart our server and then we'll try to send the email again and see what we get. So now our server is up, and I'm going to bring back this little script I showed you earlier that I wrote in Python. Again, it's quite just a few lines. You can go through them. It's also pretty easy to read. But the interesting thing now is if I run this script one more time, we should see that we don't get any error anymore. It executes until the end. And then if we look at the logs we get from our server, we'll see all the commands that we've handled just from this simple email. And then we are also able to log the content of the email, which is happens to be all these things down here. Okay, and so that's actually it, guys. Pretty straightforward. And what we can also probably do is to um, just also show you so you also know it's not hard coded somehow. And so now you send that one more time, and we also see that the content here. This is a dummy email sent using Python SMTP lib. Anyway, guys, that's all I wanted to show you in this tutorial. It was probably a quick one, but still packed with a lot of information. Again, feel free to experiment with this. If something is not clear, if you would want me to expand on some aspects of this, of course, feel free to reach out to me, and I would gladly do that for you. Anyways, guys, we'll draw the curtains here, and yeah, until we see each other again, have a lovely evening. And of course, if you're new, go ahead and subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and you will always be notified each time we have a new interesting content for you. Anyways, guys, until we see each other again, have a lovely evening. Bye bye.